The female loneliness epidemic will skyrocket as men are done with dating, marriage, and relationships. It's par for the course.
So earlier this evening, I was out at a restaurant, and there was a group of three women that walked in that were probably around the age of 40. They all took a seat at the bar, and the one in the middle, I could overhear her a little bit from the far sides of the restaurant at the tables. And she was celebrating that she had just divorced her husband. Keep in mind, these are women who are in their 40s, making a scene in the restaurant, in the bar area, taking selfies. They're getting wasted and stuff like that. And exactly, guys, this is the problem right here, is that you have so many men being disrespected, openly disrespected and mocked. This woman over here celebrating the divorce, probably spending the guy's money to even have that night out with her girlfriends or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen tons of shorts with women who are doing just that. There was one particular account, I can't recall which, it was on TikTok. This lady, she was it was supposed to be a serious video. It was like 4 minutes long. And she was describing how she got triggered by her Chanel clothes. She had all these clothes just laid out. And it didn't make her think of her husband she was divorcing. No, it made her think of how she didn't used to have to think about, she didn't have to look at price tags before she bought stuff. So she was thinking about the lifestyle that he provided her with. That's what that was all about. It had nothing to do with him. And she was on her second divorce. She also had a daughter who it looked like she was either a teenager in her early 20s, who's of course going to be following in the same footsteps. This woman is one of those girl bosses. And I think during the marriage, she was still working. She said she was working, her butt off and stuff, like a man basically. And she said, thank God I did that. So she, throughout her second marriage, probably her first two, she was working, preparing for the exit. She wasn't trying to help build something with her husband. No, she was doing that just in case things didn't work out. So that's the mindset that a lot of women have going into marriages, is just that. And I know a lot of women will probably say, well, don't men have us sign prenups and to protect their assets just in case? Yeah, because the table is tilted in your favor. So of course we're going to try to protect the stuff that we earned. And she didn't have to work. She didn't have to work at all. She was in a masculine role of work when she should have been in her feminine purpose or she was in her masculine purpose of work, which isn't women's default purpose. Their purpose is to be the feminine purpose of family. She's supposed to be attentive to her husband's needs and to take care of the home and the children. That is what women are biologically hardwired to do, and men are biologically hardwired to protect and provide. That's just the way it is. That's the way that's the way you have a healthy society. But man, society is a word that just really messes me up. But all right, let's continue.
And you have a lot of men right now who are afraid to speak out against this kind of stuff, who have been beaten down. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If this continues, if it hasn't started already, if this continues, there's all this talk about the male loneliness and that kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you something right now. Men can handle loneliness, being alone, whatever you want to call it, just fine. A heck of a lot better than a lot of people think. Women, on the other hand, from what I've seen, can't handle that at all. Even a lot of women I've known who are single, they're still posting pictures in the bikinis on social media. They're still posting all these story posts. They're going out of the house wearing makeup and all different kinds of stuff for attention. Men do not do that kind of stuff. At least masculine men who are...
Yeah, that's because the equivalent of sex for women is attention, and the equivalent of sex for men is sex.
Confident themselves do not do that kind of stuff. So my point being, even women who are not in relationships, who are single, are doing things for attention. Men, on the other hand, do not do those things because, quite frankly, they could be just fine being lone wolves, being alone, focusing on their grind. And the problem is, like with this example I mentioned at the restaurant, a lot of women have grown up with this kind of anti-man sentiment that's going to push men away. When men are walking away from relationships, dating, marriage, it is going to lead to a female. I don't even think the male loneliness epidemic is a thing, quite frankly. Like I've said, being lonely and being alone are completely different things. Most men can handle being alone just fine. If you have even one or two close friends who really have your back, or a sibling perhaps, or a father in your life, you're going to be just fine.
Right. Men can do without and can do with little. Women have to have attention, right? They have to always be doing something. They can never be bored. And I myself, I'm never bored by myself. I can find plenty of things to do to occupy my time, and I enjoy my solitude. And I'm not alone all the time. It can suck if that's the case. Just for any human being alone for too long is not a good thing. But it is healthy to be okay being alone and have a good portion of your time by yourself, I think. Because some people, they just get FOMO. They have to. They have this fear of missing out. But as you get older, you realize there's not a lot that you're really missing out on. I've experienced plenty. I'm good. And I think also when he's talking about how, I mean, of course, women are raised with this feminist paradigm, right? So it's second nature to want to tear men down, of course. Given the false narratives that they've been told about the way that their feminist history, which is completely inaccurate, how it frames men as the beneficiaries of female oppression. We're just lounging, enjoying the benefits while women are in, they toil away and are just pregnant constantly and being breastfeeding, and it's so miserable because that's how they frame motherhood, right? And being a wife is being oppressive. And I think that a lot of men, for a while, they were tolerating these women, the hearing this stuff from women just so that they could get sex. But I think that men are really over it now. I think that because Bill Burr, he back when he didn't suck, he had a really great line where he basically was saying that men, they placate women just because they want to get laid, right? You don't criticize her because you want to have sex. So that I think that is coming to an end. They would rather just not have to deal with it anymore. They're not going to sacrifice any of their peace any longer. Nothing. They used to kind of over leverage themselves just so that they could get some. Not no mo. So
you don't need a big social circle and distractions. So my point being is that if this kind of disrespect keeps happening, you are going to see an actual loneliness epidemic among women. The problem is, like I mentioned with this girl in the restaurant, she probably has a line of guys, sadly, a line of guys who might take that man's place. And that's a problem I've seen. There are so many men where, with single mothers, with women that have all these red flags, they will, for some reason, date these girls, take them seriously. And, I understand that for a lot of men, at least most men who are red-pilled or whatever you want to call it, it takes them getting burned by a female. Some men have to learn the hard way. But me as a friend and you guys watching, if you know someone who's like this, who you see pursuing single mothers, women with red flags, blatant red flags, you got to tell them, like, dude, this is going to end very, very badly. But my point being is, really what I see is the problem. Because I'm not saying all women are.
That's why I'm here. That's why I exist, because that's how I got red pilled, because I learned the hard way. And there are plenty of men that are going down that same path, and I exist to keep them from continuing down that path, and to try to reach men before they even get to that path. They get to the crossroad of single mom or whatever. Just, dude, a single mom or solitude. Dude, pick solitude every time. Never, ever, 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 ever date a single mom.
Bad, but most women grew up with this indoctrination from the schools. Most women went to public school. Most women, or should I say many women, were perhaps raised by mothers who had a disdain towards men, who perhaps disrespected the father in the household. And a lot of women now are not only being raised with the idea that they can compete with men, but really with the incentive that they should compete with men. That they should try to compete with men. And I see this a lot in academia and college. I even had a conversation with someone the other day, but something I've seen a lot is women with degrees in particular, especially if they're in maybe good lines of work or a good job, that get in relationships or even get married. They want to now compete with the man, and there's all these very weird power dynamics. Keep in mind, the man could be doing perfectly fine for himself. Like, I've known people.
That's what I was talking about with that lady earlier. She was competing with her husband, with both of her husbands in both of her marriages. She was working like a dog while he was working like a dog and screwing up her daughter in the process. Her daughter is now emulating her, and she has all of these obnoxious TikToks of her just drinking and traveling with her gal pals, all of her 40 and 50-year-old gal pals. Just, yeah, it might be a party now, but when you get to your 60s and your 70s, that party's going to end. These parties for these women, they aren't going to last. These women are going to get their just desserts.
People in trades who make more than the women who have the college degrees, but just because she has a college degree or something like that, she thinks that she is above the man. She thinks that she should be the one to have the power in a relationship, and I see that kind of stuff all the time. Now, keep in mind, I don't want to go off on a tangent or different subject, but there's no guarantee, even with those kind of jobs. I've known many people who have gone to college, gotten great jobs. I knew someone personally who had graduated. This was during the kind of big tech boom a few years ago. And he was working for Expedia, making well above $100,000 a year right after college. And he's been laid off now for a few years. And no shame at anyone who's working minimum wage, but he right now is working at a Goodwill. He hasn't been able to find work for a long time.
Dude, can you imagine going from college to $100K to working at Goodwill minimum wage? That's wild. And props to that guy for sticking it out. That's what men are capable of doing. Do you see a lot of women doing that? That's what's going to happen with a lot of these boss babes when their jobs get taken with AI. They're going to be forced to do jobs because they don't have a husband, right? They're strong and independent. They don't need a husband. They don't need no man. They're going to end up at Wendy's. I guarantee it. And they're going to hate every minute of it. And they're going to understand what it's like to be a man. It's a hard job. It's a hard life. It's a hard knock life for us.
So that's another part where a lot of women, I don't think, seem to understand that, at any given moment, especially with the rise of AI and stuff like that, you never know, these white collar jobs that they want to be so boastful about could be taken away from them. Again, That's why it's important to be humble. But I see the problem now, a lot of women who want to compete with men, especially those, like I said, that are in those kind of maybe higher income positions or jobs or got a college degree, right? And look, I went to college, and I'll tell you something right now. In college, there was a lot of this feminism garbage that was spewed, this anti-man garbage. I remember it was actually my first quarter at community college. They had us fill out a sheet. It was for just a generic kind of general education course. They had us fill out a sheet, and it was divided in two sides and two halves. And one side was all these different labels, but man was one of them. On the other side was women, essentially saying that if you're a man, you have it on easy street, that you have some innate ability, that your life is going to be easier. Meanwhile, they're not talking about the tradesman. They're not talking about the father working for his family, back-breaking jobs. They don't have it easy. A man's life is not easy. People do not understand that. And
I was, I think Spear, he's in the Seattle area. I went to community college in the Portland, Oregon area. I went to PCC, Portland Community College, in 2011. I only did 2 semesters. I did the first semester I did website development and design, and then I was like, screw that. I hated it. And then I moved over to welding technologies, because I wanted to because I'm like, well, maybe I want to make bikes. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I really enjoyed just being a barista and being a bike messenger. And so I ended up just dropping out. I didn't have an associate's at the end of it. I did get on the dean's list. I got a 3.8 GPA my first semester. Got on the dean's list. Woohoo! Big whoop-de-doo. I didn't have a political lens. This was 2011, so I myself was not red pilled at that time, or whatever you want to call it. I was not. I was just plugged into the matrix, just doing my thing. This was when I was just kind of in la la land and just enjoying. I wasn't a party animal, but I liked going out to dance clubs and bars and stuff and hanging out with friends constantly. I always had FOMO. I always had to be. I was behaving the way these 45, 55-year-old divorced women are behaving out there with their gal pals, just getting Patrick Swayze, white girl wasted, listening to Kesha. But I don't really remember a lot of it wasn't really. There was that liberal stuff going on. I was in Portland after all. I do remember going. I had to print something off, and I went into the Multicultural Center, and I was the only white dude, and I got some funny looks. But that's how oblivious I was to all of that. I did not think about that stuff at all, and I never heard the terms like white privilege or any of that stuff until after I had left Portland in 2015, 2016. That's when I started hearing all of that woke vocabulary. But it's ironic that I didn't really hear any of that when I was in the belly of the beast. But that was still during Obama. So everyone was still chill. No one had flipped out yet. But community college, waste of time. Glad I left. If you're in community college, what are you doing, honestly?
And really, that's exactly the problem. Men are getting disrespected on a daily basis, and I think it's going to come to a point, if this continues, like I mentioned, where a lot of men are going to walk away. They're going to walk away.
I mean, we already are. Men have been walking away for quite some time, and just making the conscious choice to be selfish, right? Like I said, men, they weren't walking away from these disrespectful women. They're taking it so they could get some. Because men need sex. They need sex, but now they don't need it as badly as they used to. Now they're like, F that, forget it. I want respect, then sex. Where I think it's men are done. They're not walking away. They're done settling. I guess that's walking away. Whatever. Call it whatever you want. Walking away, not settling. Men, we want the respect, right? We just want the respect. It's not that hard.
They're going to walk away from all of it.
But it is, apparently.
And when, whatever you want to call it, when the water dries and stuff like that, where women do not have these men that they can fall back on, they're going to want to change their tune really quick. Because it's certainly not going to end anywhere good. Now, I want to touch on some...
Yeah, they're going to be... When they're having to resort to working at fast food restaurants and getting really shitty jobs, they're going to be begging for men's help. Begging, please marry me, I'll do whatever you want. I'll wash this. I'll wash this, I'll suck this, I'll do whatever. That's probably what's going to happen.
Something, too, because I mentioned the divorce and stuff like that. In what world is it acceptable for a woman not only to celebrate divorce? I understand if maybe it was a case if the man was toxic and abusive. I'm not saying men can't be that. But in the cases I've seen personally from people I've known, these are good men, decent men that have been done wrong by the courts and stuff like that. Fraud and allegations made against them. I mentioned this person.
Been there. Still there.
Person who was a D1 college football player. What she did was absolutely disgusting, and she got away with it. So they had split custody of the daughter. She was out and essentially said that Your daughter's injured, texting him while she had a temporary kind of restraining order, whatever you want to call it. He reaches back to her and says, hey, I'm going to be there just to make sure that our daughter's okay, as any good father would do. He's met by police. This girl set him up. And what I find so crazy about this all, I don't know if it's like this in all states, but it sure as heck is like this in my state because I've heard the same tune many times. But a woman could literally get a temporary restraining order without any reason. I think they grant it for a couple weeks. It might be a little bit longer or shorter than that. And they're allowed to text the man. But if the man texts them back, they're in trouble. Does that make any sense to you? Look, I was so fearful.
Yeah, it's backwards. So for a lot of women, that you can look this up. There are books on this that teach women how to do this, but there's what's called the silver bullet method. And women will leverage false allegations so they can gain. I mean, they already have the advantage, but it's so they can gain even more of an advantage in court, take more money, take the kids, completely destroy the man's life. So, yeah, of course, men aren't going to want to sign up for that any longer. Of course, men are going to not settle or walk away. Of course.
Curious when I heard this, because if you get that restraining order, whatever you want to call it, and you're now texting the guy that you supposedly were worried about at risk and stuff like that, you should now be the one going to trial for fraud, for defamation of character, for...
No, that'll never happen. None of that will ever happen. They if anything, they get off with maybe a slap on the wrist. That they don't... No, does not happen.
Really exploiting the whole system. But it's a big sham. And so many men are going through this. I've even seen cases where kids grow...
Yeah, so a lot of women will do, it's what's called a vexatious litigation, which is it's a legal action brought maliciously without merit and solely to harass, annoy, or cause unnecessary legal expenses to an opponent. And that's how a lot of women will wear men out in court and make it to where they can't fight for their kids, because they drain them of resources. Because each time you have to re-engage with your ex in court, it's expensive and it's taxing emotionally. But yeah, it happens in family court. So a party repeatedly filing motions to modify custody or child support without cause just to drain the other party's finances. Women get away with that all the time. All the time. You don't often see men doing that to women. You don't often see men going after the mother like that, unless the mother is really messed up and she deserves it.
Grew up without their father, do not know their father throughout their whole life. And like I said, these are good, decent men. These are not abusive, toxic men. But it's because they want to, like I said, they're encouraged to compete with men. They're encouraged to have the power dynamics above men. And they just want to get back at the man by taking the one most precious thing in their life, which is their kid. And I want to tell you guys something.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of this garbage of even content like this. People want to say, not most people, at least people with common sense, but trying to say it's misogyny or whatever you want to call it. You take a father who has a daughter, mess with that daughter, whatever you want to call it. You'll see standing up for women like the likes of which you've never seen before. Just have something happen to their mother. You're going to see men standing up for women, the likes that you have never seen before. And guys, I want to talk about fatherhood because this is important. I was blessed to grow up with my biological father in my life. And those memories with my dad, I remember, and it's crazy to think that this was a quarter of a century ago, how time flies. But even things like going to the movie theater and seeing Monsters, Inc. with my dad and my little brother, I wouldn't trade the world for those memories.
See, I hope that my son talks about me like this when he's his age. When my son is in his 20s and 30s, I hope that is all I want, is for my son to say these words about me. That's it.
I would not trade the world for those.
I do everything that I do to fight for my son is so that one day he will say words like that about me.
Things. And you have so many kids right now who are not going to have that opportunity because of these false pretenses, because of this sickness that is going on. Don't get it twisted. Any woman who is doing that, you are seriously sick. I'm sorry, that is a complete piece of trash. If you are going to use, like I've talked about before, a father's kid as a power grab, as a manipulation tactic, as a bargaining chip or gambling chip, whatever you want to call it, you are sick in the head. There is something seriously wrong with you. I even heard of cases where there'll be the woman will get full custody, and while the father's out of the life, they'll feed the kid all this garbage about their biological father. He's an abuser, he's a deadbeat, and this kind of stuff. They go to adulthood, and of course, as most kids are, as pretty much all kids are, they're impressionable. They don't know any better. They're naive. They haven't experienced life, so they believe it. They believe it, and they don't want to make an effort to reach back out to their father. They don't. So, really, guys, this is the problem I see, is that this is not talked about enough.
And this is what fathers like me fight against. We want to make sure that we do everything possible to make sure, because even if the road looks bleak, if it looks dark, which it is, it's filled with a lot of emotional pain. It's filled with a lot of financial stress. It's filled with a lot of uncertainty. What he's describing is a common fear that us dads in this position do have, that we will be alienated to that extent where our children, as they get older, will fully reject us. And like I said, that's because I want my son, when he gets to his age, to realize that, wow, my dad really loved me. He oh my God, he sacrificed all these things because he loved me. And there are women out there, they do not care about that. They have no heart, and they will use a child as a weapon to hurt the dad because they, for whatever reason, they couldn't get over their adult issues. They couldn't separate that from the children, and so they choose to use the child as a weapon and to destroy the father in so many ways. And a lot of men self-delete because of that. Because they lose access to their children. They didn't even do anything through false allegations, whatever. All of these tactics that these mothers use. It's this by any means necessary mentality that these women have, and they do not give up. They will continue doing that until the end. They especially if they are well funded, they have enough dry powder to take you to court over and over and over again, and they know that you have limited resources, they will exhaust you. It is a war of attrition and finances at the end of the day.
This is ultimately why I made this channel. I am very blessed and very thankful to be monetized. I'm very blessed and very thankful to have had the growth I've had, to have you guys here viewing the video. But this is serious. This needs to be talked about.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave the link to his channel, to this video down below. So if you haven't already, go ahead and sub him, show him some love and support. He's got really good content. So love his channel, respect the guy, hell of a guy.
I know countless men. I shouldn't say countless, but more than I can count with both hands, men that have gone through this situation with the courts, that have gone through this, that feel defeated because they grew up in the public education and they were pushed this kind of stuff like I dealt with in my college years, trying to tell me as a man that there's something wrong with me, that my life is somehow an easy street compared to women. They're out of their mind. They are completely out of their mind. You know, it's beyond ridiculous. And I want to make a point of something too. When you see this kind of stuff, these women that hate men, whatever, ultimately what it's a reflection of is they hate really themselves, their own kids. They don't.
A lot of them didn't have fathers, so they have that void and they have that anger towards their father. They don't have a proper example of what a good man looks like. Since they don't have the father, they pick all of these horrible men. And then they just assume that that's what all men are like. And also, it depends on what the mom's telling them about their dad. and about men. You see that a lot where the mother will tear down men and she will emulate her mother. She doesn't have any other example other than other than her mom.
Have the best interests of them. They have no, they don't at all. And they are so corrupt. They are so really abusive, even physically abusive. I've seen in some cases. Again, another thing nobody seems to want to talk about.
Like that Taylor chick from The Bachelorette, dude. Taylor Frankie Paul, dude. She. Oh my gosh, words cannot describe how messed up everything I can't even get into that.
One-sided abuse. And I've heard people that have talked to police officers and stuff like that. They said a lot of the time, the one-sided kind of abuse and stuff like that in relationships, most of the time it is the woman towards the man. Most of the time it is the woman towards the man doing that.
Yep.
So, guys, I don't want to see it anymore.
And the guy's helpless because people will laugh at that, and then also it won't be taken seriously a lot of the times by the cops. Sometimes it does, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Just depends. But you have to imagine how frightening it must be for that guy, especially if they're following the Duluth model. Because that does happen where a man, he's the one being abused, but he may not have recorded it or something. Like it just depends on how it goes down. But they might take her side. She may be lying through her teeth, but they're still they're gonna handcuff him and take him in, even though she was the one wailing on him.
I don't want to see men, good men, decent men, like I said, getting disrespected on a daily basis, because there is going to be a scary reality for women that do this kind of stuff, and for even women as a whole, even women that maybe don't play part in this. Because you're going to see men really walk away. You're not going to have that kind of shoulder to fall back on. Of course, there are things as men we need to do better as well. I see a lot of men, like I mentioned, making this mistake. Getting with the women who are the toxic single mothers, who isolated the kids from their biological father. That's part of the problem too. Looking over red flags and stuff like that. Not controlling really the ability to focus on your mission and purpose.
And that is a huge mistake by the men. That's the mistake that I made, was overlooking red flags. Okay? It will lead you down a road that you don't want to go down. Okay? Once you're down that road, you gotta do what you can to make the best of it. I'm speaking from experience, and it's too late for me. It's not too late for a lot of you men out there to not choose the idiotic path of dating a single mom, dating some woman with tons of red flags. If you're dating her, stop. Just end it as amicably as possible, and just go about your business, please.
Which is a big problem. Desperation and stuff like that. Of course, there are things that men can do better. But the root problem is that it has been pushed from a young age to incentivize not only that you can compete with a man, that you should, that men are somehow innately this group of people that have it on easy street and this and that. You're somehow being done wrong, when it's like women have it on easy street compared to men.
Yeah.
Women, I'll tell it straight up. Of course, there are women whose lives are hard. Of course, there are women who have tragic things happen to them. But for the most part, a man's life is going to be harder than a woman.
And don't make it any harder than you have to, guys. Like I said, dude, you spot those red flags, you spot them early, and you do not make any concessions whatsoever, right? You draw a line in the sand, you see one red flag, and that's it. That's a wrap. That's what you need to do, honestly. Do not settle. Do not say, oh, well, that one. Don't create. There are either green flags or there are red flags. Don't make this yellow flag BS, okay? Do not settle for any flag that kind of where you're you're taken aback and you're having to double think. You have to think about it. If you have to think about it and question it, then that means that it's a red flag.
And as men, of course, it's our duty and our job to stay focused, to not lash out emotionally. But again, that's the problem too, is they're shaming men. So a lot of men are not knowing how to handle those things. They are lashing out because I shouldn't say lashing out in terms of what a lot of people think, but they're really fighting demons in silence, and they're not knowing how to deal with those things.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of men that don't want to play part in this anymore. And when that happens, I think it's going to be a real wake-up call, especially for women who mistreated men, who've done stuff like this. Like I said, the woman in the bar with her girlfriends on a Monday evening, by the way, drinking, celebrating the divorce. But as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing the video.
Heck yeah, man. Good job, Spiro. Good stuff. So yeah, go support him. Go give him a like and hype that video. And sub him if you haven't already. What are you doing? Fellas, it's okay to feel anger and frustration. It's okay to have all these emotions. These are natural human emotions. But it's, like you said, men do need to do better in the sense that they react instead of respond. They don't take a minute. You need to take a minute. If you're feeling these things, whatever the situation may be, if you're feeling anger, you're feeling frustration, you feel like you want to punch something, don't. Just, it's okay to feel it. It's just, it's not the emotion itself that is inherently bad. It's what you decide to do with that. You need to take that energy, that negative energy, and channel it into something productive, not destructive. Because you will mess up your life pretty quick if you're one of those guys that cannot regulate his emotions. And a lot of people, they'll say, because there's the difference between Victorian Stoicism and Greek Stoicism. No one is telling men to just shove it all down, just bottle it all up, and don't do anything with it. Because eventually, yeah, you'll explode. It has nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with suppressing your emotions. It's all about regulating your emotions. You're not suppressing them, you're regulating them, and you're channeling them properly. There's a healthy way to deal with those negative feelings, and then there is an unhealthy way. So men, pick the healthy way. Stop choosing women with red flags, and you do need to be selfish at this point. Selfish in the sense that you need to really think about the consequences of getting into a relationship with a woman with red flags, or getting into a relationship with a single mom, which is the ultimate red flag in and of itself. So you just really need to be, you're walking through a minefield, okay? But you're doing it with headphones on, and you're skipping, and you have no idea you're in a minefield. You're acting like you're not in a minefield. You need to act like you're in a minefield, because you are. There are tripwires, there are landmines, there are booby traps. Okay? Stay vigilant, okay? Stay vigilant. All right.